Hey, it's Lawrence, the writer and illustrator of More to That. Today I'm here to show you how I created the post, Why We Doubt Ourselves. So, if you haven't read it yet, please go check it out. And now I'm going to jump behind the camera to show you the process from beginning to end. So, see you in a bit. And bam! Hello, here I am behind the camera. So, now we're going to go into the very first part of the whole post creation process, which is the outlining. So getting whatever ideas are in the mind down onto paper, and then take whatever that might be and putting it into the word processor. So for me, in this post, I actually started out with the traditional longhand format. Nothing fancy, just taking whatever thoughts are, grabbing a pen, and putting that pen to paper. So the tool there is none other than a good old notebook. Super old school, old fashioned, I know, but in this case, it worked for me. So I don't do this with every single post. I don't start longhand with every single one, but for this particular one, I felt that there would be something there special if I just started off by writing things down. So we're gonna go into the outline here for Why We Doubt Ourselves. And I wanted to try my best to create a skeleton version of the post, just have a general outline down with the actual content in there that I would then be able to use as a reference guide for when I'm ready to start typing. So I'm not going to go into each part of it. I just want to show you what it kind of roughly looks like and how just scattered and disjointed a lot of this stuff looks like. But that's a necessary process of putting together something like this. So you'll see here that I have sections that are just crossed out, arrows that are telling me to move stuff around, like here, and also you'll see little sketches of illustrations that I'm thinking about that would create a good reference point for the thing to flow well. So if you haven't read the post by now, I encourage you to do so, but the post itself is essentially what I would find if I picked up the rule book that self-doubt operated under. And there were 3 rules in there to go with. So there was first a prologue talking about how self-doubt is not really about the self, it's about our relationship with other creators and what they have set as barometers for what is possible, and the expectations that we tend to go off of with that in mind. So you'll see here I have rule number 1, overestimate everyone else's abilities and underestimate your own. And you'll see that these illustrations in a skeleton form actually made it into full-fledged ones inside of the post itself. And here's an example that I want to show about how I thought an idea would work when I was outlining it, and that I just ended up doing away with the thing when I actually sat down to do the post. So for the envy part of it, I actually thought initially about creating this little character to personify envy, and its name was the Envy Invader, or the Envader for short. So yeah, by the time I actually sat down to do the post and I was looking at how things were flowing, it just made sense to me to not include this. But once again, it was important for me to actually write that down and see where it went, and to understand, okay, this sounds like it could work, but once you actually sit down to put everything together to understand that this puzzle piece may not be required, or actually just doesn't fit, it's just way too jagged and disorienting, so let's take it out. So in here I have certain sections where, for example, I remind myself to put in a quote. So there's the Bertrand Russell quote about envy, which is really cool, about how beggars don't envy millionaires, but will envy other beggars who are more successful. I thought I did a really good job encapsulating envy and the kind of devious trick it plays by. And then rule number 3 here, make quitting feel like a rational decision. So here are some of the graphs that I have in skeleton form that I ended up using in the post itself. And finally, the conclusion of the 3 things to keep in mind as we understand the rules that self-doubt operates under. So that is the outline for this post in a nutshell. And consider this the analog realm of the process. And then the next part is, of course, the writing itself, which is where we're going to now jump into the digital realm. So I'll see you there. All right. Now that we have our outline and the general structure of the post complete, we're going to move on to the next logical step, which is it's time to write. All right. So what do I use to write? There's so many different things we could use. We can use, obviously, the old school Microsoft Word. We could use Evernote, Google Docs, so many different things. But for me, I don't really need any bells and whistles when it comes to writing. I just need something that could keep my attention solely focused on the one thing that really matters, which is writing. So I need something that could block out anything else, all distractions. It could take, I'm not tempted to go on the internet or Twitter and check out what's going on. And all those things are just, a few clicks away. So I use this thing called Cold Turkey Writer, and it's really simple. What it effectively does is it just changes your computer. It turns your computer into a typewriter for X amount of time or until a certain word count has been hit. That's it. It's so simple, but it's very, very effective for me. And at the end, basically, when you're done with your draft, it saves as a simple text file, and you can continue writing. You could open that draft in another writing session and then continue the process until you have a long chain of text files with prior versions and so forth until you get to a finalized version of your draft. So I'm just going to open Cold Turkey Writer for a moment here just to kind of show you what it looks like. So super simple interface, boring, which is great. I need things to just be boring. So there's a couple of options here. You could either type in a word count, so it's going to block everything until you hit a certain word count, or you could do number of minutes from now. This is the one I use. So I typically do, like, let's say 120-minute session. So my laptop effectively becomes a typewriter for 2 hours, and that's all I could do is just use it as a typewriter. So and then I'll do maybe a 2-hour session, take a break, and then maybe do another session afterwards. It just kind of depends on what I'm writing, what my energy levels are. But for the most part, I tend to do a little longer sessions. But for purposes of this demo and this behind the scenes, I'm not going to do 120 minutes because no one wants to sit here for 2 hours watching this thing. So I'm just going to set a 2-minute limit and hit start. So immediately you're greeted with this blank page and this light gray bar where the time is moving fairly quickly because it's only 2 minutes, and you just get to writing. So I'm just going to write here basically the post itself. Obviously, when I'm actually doing it, there's a lot of going back and forth, some rewrites. It's going to take a while and so forth. But just for the purposes of this behind the scenes, I'm just going to type out here to show you what it looks like. So let's go ahead. And I'm probably going to fast forward this a little so you don't have to sit through the whole thing. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a moment. So you notice that in this part, so I have self-doubt asking me this asshole question. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Will your work ever be good enough? And in this program, because it's so boring, I can't even italicize or bold anything. Like, it's just straight up plain text. So I put little markers here to indicate that when I'm done with all this and it's time to format and edit, I italicize this word. So I just do like a control find for this bracket. So that's just one formatting thing here. All right, onward. Okay, so as you can see here, Cold Turkey Writer is telling me, hey, your 2 minutes are up. You could either snooze it and it'll go on for another 10 minutes, or you can just save and quit and it'll save as a text file. So I've paused here because this is a moment where I'm going to insert an illustration. So as I'm writing this, I'll have, this kind of idea of where to put an illustration, or the outline that I was using kind of prompts an illustration here. So what I'll do is I'll just keep a tally of where an illustration is needed by using this bracket. So I'll just put an illustration of me looking at the computer screen, thinking things are going nowhere. Okay, so then I know that there's an illustration to go in there. And then, just yada, 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 more words. And you'll see more of these illustration brackets. Yada, yada, yada. I'll put more of these illustration brackets here. So I put all this in here as placeholders for me to have to go in and insert an illustration here later. So after this is all said and done, I'll have a good draft and I'll edit it, make sure that it looks cool, and I have a good idea of how everything is going to look. Then I will move to doing the illustrations. So that's where we're going to go next. So I'll see you there. So on the right here is the completed draft. And as you can see, there are all these brackets here saying there's illustrations to do, illustrations, blah, blah, blah. So what I'll do is I'll create an Excel file, and then I'll put all of the illustrations, what I need to draw, and I'll list them all down here. And then when it's ready to go, I will hit finished, mark little X's indicating that I completed that particular illustration. So for this post, there's 19 of them, and I'm just going to go in and show you one of them now in Illustrator. So see you there. Okay, so this is an image I particularly like in the post. It's just of our main character here looking out into the distance, feeling like it's alone, but it really isn't because it's part of a greater landscape of creators. So what I wanted to do was just redraw this image to the best of my ability on Adobe Illustrator, which is what I use to draw everything that you see on the blog. So let's just go over to Illustrator. I have a blank canvas here, and what I'm going to do is just draw it live and just kind of fast forward the whole thing so you could see the process kind of more on a higher level, but just get more of a behind the scenes look into how one of these things are done. Okay, so let's begin. All right, and that's that. This is the image in its finalized form. Of course, the colors are a little bit different and the positioning of the assets is a little different from the original one, but I just did this one on a whim to show you what the illustration process looks like. So for this post in particular, I had to repeat this whole process about 18 more times. So that just gives you an idea of what the commitment looks like in regards to doing an illustrated post of this nature. But I firmly believe in the power of illustrations. They act as fantastic visual cues for a reader and allow certain points to stick. And also, not only that, it provides a sense of flow for the reader as well. So I'm a firm believer in illustrations, and this is a window into doing them. So yeah, we went through the whole process of this post, from brainstorming to outlining to writing to creating a list of the illustrations to doing the illustrations themselves. So I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes look and you found it insightful. If you haven't already, please read the post, which is Why We Doubt Ourselves. It's up on the site now. And if you have any questions of any sort, if you just want to reach out and say hello, you could reach me via email, contact@moretothat.com. You could reach me on Twitter @moretothat, and whatever social media handles are all More to That. So yeah, feel free to reach out at any time, and hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you around. Bye.